Let's go to Roy Lilley now. He's a former NHS Trust Chairman, friend of the show, and joins us now. A very happy New Year to you, Roy.
And a happy New Year to you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you know, another January, another winter flu crisis. What a surprise. Only time we didn't get one was during COVID, when, of course, no one was allowed to see each other. So flu didn't spread. It was just overtaken by COVID. Flu's been back with a vengeance ever since COVID. Everyone I know has been ill, whether it's this HMPV or whether it's flu or rhinovirus or COVID, who knows? Everyone I know has been feeling rotten, coughs and colds and what. But we know, of course, that these diseases do impact elderly people in particular the most. When the Health Secretary says he's ashamed that patients are waiting such long time at hospital A&Es, and it's more than a dozen hospitals, should he be?
Well, they've been in office for about 6 months, haven't they, really? They've had 14 years to get ready for office. I mean, in fairness, I suppose in reality, they've had 3 or 4 years to develop current and meaningful plans for the future of the NHS. And I must say that I was surprised that they're going to take until the spring to develop a plan for the NHS, and then there's going to be a whole load of consultation and mucking about. Then it's got to be funded, so it's got to be plugged into the next financial cycle. So, yes, I mean, frankly...
that was just government speak for it's not happening for a while.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they just kind of kicked it in the long grass because they didn't know what to do. I mean, that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is the NHS has worked on its winter plan for this year back in June. I mean, it was published in July, circulated, consulted on, and signed, sealed, and delivered. So people were ready for it. What has happened that I think has caught everybody unawares is that we've got now the confluence of novavirus, which can be very dangerous in vulnerable people. We've had the COVID, which is still very virulent and running around. We've had flu and RSV. Now, most of those have got, not with novavirus, but the rest of them have got vaccinations. A couple of things have happened with that. Inexplicably, the vaccine period normally starts in September. It didn't start until October last year. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. I've never met anybody that does. It's the job for the Health Protection Agency to try and do that. They took over the role of public health. I mean, they're not a great organisation, I'm afraid, and they've come under a lot of criticism. So we've got that. Big chunk of people who normally get vaccines have been left out this year, the 50 to the 65s. And they're quite important, and they're important because if you're 50, you're likely to have an elderly relative. Your mum or dad's likely to be 70, and you're likely to be a granddad. And kids are super spreaders around this as well. So not vaccinating them, it's not that they can't cope with the flu or whatever. It's them spreading it. That's part of the problem.
Now, does the flu vaccine prevent you from getting it? That's what we were told with COVID, and that wasn't the case.
Yes.
Or is it to prevent you from getting seriously ill with it?
Well, all vaccinations work the same day. They prepare your body with antibodies so it knows what to expect. So if you do pick it up, sometimes you don't even know you've had it and you breeze through it. And other people, it just ameliorates the symptoms. And
but that's not the same as. But again, that's if you got it but you don't know you've got it and you feel fine, just have a bit of a sniffle, you can still then pass it on to your elderly relatives.
Only some of the antibodies. Yes, I mean it's a complex thing. I mean the real thing that we don't do, I think, is and you won't want to hear this, but the way to deal with these infections is they're all mostly, apart from novavirus, they're mostly airborne, and they're transmitted through droplets, and you know what
we should all lock down.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is there should have been greater emphasis on ventilating premises, which the government haven't done, and there should be some sensible advice on wearing masks in public transport and crowded places.
Oh, for goodness sake, I've seen those mask lunatics. You know, as I do, this has been so well documented. The reasons why people were not advised to wear masks before, because it doesn't make a difference, because the droplets stay in the air. It's all, it's just a load of nonsense. It's an illusion.
It is not the case that masks don't work. It's the case that there is no silver bullet. it's the case that there's silver buckshot and there was a whole load of things you can do. I mean, the only public health messages that I've seen this year, perhaps you've seen different ones, is to wash your hands, which is important, certainly for novavirus.
I think people should be doing that more often anyway. I was one decent thing that might have come out of the madness of the last few years is people washing their hands more. I'd get the train in and out of the office every day. My God, the state of some people, you know, sneezing into their hands and then holding onto the rail. It's absolutely disgusting. But
well,
look,
all of those things are
but listen, hasn't everyone forgotten common sense, which is like, I've got some elderly relatives. I mean, you know, look, I'm a super spread. I work in an office with a load of young people. I've got a teenage daughter who knows everyone in North London. I've got 2 nephews at nursery school, age 3. I mean, if there is a bug going around the capital city, hello, Julia's going to catch it and I'm going to pass it on. But no, I don't go and see my elderly aunt when I've got a really bad cold or not, even just a cold. I don't even know. I don't test for what it is because I don't want to pass it on to her. That's just about people being sensible. And people used to know how to do this stuff before.
Julia, people are not sensible, are they? That's the trouble.
Well, then, you know.
Well, listen, that's
Darwin at work, isn't it?
Look, we can kind of postulate around what people should do and what they shouldn't do. The NHS can only work with what it can work with. It had a plan. It was fully funded. Nobody expected the confluence of 4
Nobody expected there was going to be a resurgence of various different bugs during winter. I mean, I expected it.
No one expected when the winter plans were drawn up. Nobody expected that we would have the 4 very virulent infections running at the same time.
But shouldn't the NHS plan? I mean, and again, it's like no one expects a particular terror attack, but you have plans in place to deal with it.
Let me finish a sentence, please. Right, the NHS is running at about 90% plus occupancy all of the time.
That's the problem. Yeah.
We don't have the capacity. You know, we've done all this before. You know, you do the comparisons with this health system and all the other health systems. You know, we don't have the capacity. So the NHS runs at the best of times well over 90% capacity. World Health Organization, the College of Emergency Medicine say it should be down around 80%. Right, it's not. So when you get something like this happening, you haven't got anywhere to put anybody. So they end up in a corridor or what have you. The idea is to keep the emergency things that people are declaring now. What happens is you stop everything else in the hospital, focus on the front door, sorting people out in A&E, and focus on the back door to get people home. Now, the front door bit works quite well. Getting people out is the difficult bit, because you mentioned it in the introduction to this piece, that social care is completely knackered. I mean, if you think the NHS is having a tough time, have a look at social care. There isn't a plan for social care. Streeting is now saying it's going to be 2028 before there's a sort of developed, mature plan to deal with social care. And in the meantime, the NHS is stuffed up with people. It can't cope. They're generally, most people with, you know, flu, novavirus, all the rest of it, adults, they sort of kind of struggle through. But if you're elderly, you've got diabetes, COPD, other frailties, it exacerbates what you've got. And so instead of, you know, getting someone with the flu coming in, you get someone with the flu with respiratory difficulties, their oxygen stats are down, you get your stats down, everything else goes wrong. I mean, people come in with very complicated medical problems, and then you run out of medical beds. When you run out of medical beds, what do? Well, you stack people, or you say, let's put them in surgical beds. If you put them in surgical beds, you have to cancel waiting lists. What's the big pressure, the big political pressure in the NHS? Waiting lists. So what do you do then? You stack them in the corridor. Then you put them in. I mean, there is a, I heard the other night that they've turned a boardroom into a ward in one hospital. So, you know, you've got, the NHS takes it on the chin for this, but it can only do with what it's got. It needs, you know, an investment over a period. It needs to sort out the issues of the capacity that it's got, and you just can't do it overnight.
No, I know you can't do it overnight, but again, I think a lot of people expected Labour did, you know, have more of a plan than they appeared to have. Roy, we'll have to leave it there. I really appreciate you joining us. Roy Lilley, former NHS Trust Chairman.